They don't even allow us to wear jewelry at work, so why I had my watch on that day, I still don't know. As I was loading parts onto the automatic feeder when one got jammed, so I tried to free it by hand so I wouldn't have to call maintenance. Well, as soon as it came loose, the gear started up and it got my watch, and it pulled my whole arm in and it chewed it up. It was awful.
I was doing maintenance on the feed adjustment. My shirt was untucked, hanging down to my thigh. Somehow my shirt got caught in the feed line. It just started pulling me in. My leg was broken in 3 different places. The only reason I'm alive today is because someone hit the emergency stop button.
My hair should have been pulled back or up in a net, but I was in a hurry and I just didn't take the time to do it. I reached down to pick up a tool and that's when it happened. My hair wrapped around the shaft and I'll never be the same.
These people were injured at work. Every job has hazards. Our job out here and your job where you work all have hazards that must be avoided.
Today, we want to talk about some of those hazards and how to protect yourself from them. An important part of this protection is controlling long hair and loose clothing around moving machinery, as well as understanding that wearing even simple jewelry while working can cause serious injuries. Come on, let's have a look. Industrial manufacturing, food processing, chemical plants, pulp and paper, warehousing, even office areas have special and unique hazards you must be aware of.
No matter what type of work you do, you must be aware of these hazards and dress appropriately for your job.
What we're after is staying safe and not allowing moving parts and machinery to reach out and grab you. Allowing long hair, loose clothing, and jewelry to get tangled in this type of equipment causes many injuries and deaths each year. Just have a look at this. You see all those moving parts? There's one thing about machines, they don't stop. You get your shirt sleeve, your
Our bodies are very much like the machines we depend on every day. When we use them for lifting objects, we should be aware that we are applying proper mechanics to avoid injury and support a longer, healthier life. Here are the top 10 rules for lifting. 1. Do not try to lift objects if you are unable to get a good grip, even if they are not heavy. This includes items that are too bulky, awkward, or too large to handle securely. 2. Don't move or lift objects by yourself if they are heavier than 40 pounds. Get help or use some type of mechanical aid. 3. To pick up an object that is lower than the level of your waist, keep your back as straight as possible and bend at your knees and hips. Do not bend forward at the waist with your knees straight. Use the short stop position. 4. Never twist while under load. Turn your feet. Do not twist at the waist. Twisting takes your spine out of alignment and makes you vulnerable to injury. 5. Stand with a wide stance close to the object you are trying to pick up. Keep both your feet flat on the ground. Make sure you have firm, dry flooring. 6. Straighten your knees in a smooth, steady motion. Don't jerk the load up. 7. When reaching overhead, use a step stool or ladder to bring yourself up to the level of what you are reaching. 8. Get your body as close as possible to the load. Keep your elbows in tight to your sides. 9. Always use 2 hands to lift a load. 10. Make sure you can see the top of what you are trying to lift. Any unseen object can slide off and strike your head, face, or eyes. These are the top 10 lifting rules. Follow them to avoid injury. Your hands do anything your brain tells them to do, so engage your brain first. Slow down and check for the hazards of each task. No matter how long you have been doing your job or how long you have done the same tasks at work, stay focused and follow 4 basic principles of hand safety. Number 1 is pinch points. Pinch points are everywhere. Machinery, tools, materials. Anything with hinges, doors, toolboxes, stepladders have pinch points. Pay attention and be aware of each pinch point. 2 is proper gloves. Your hands can get cuts, burns, bruises, and other injuries. Handling sharp-edged materials can cause cuts. Working with some materials can cause scrapes and torn skin. Hot surfaces can cause burns. Splinters come from metal and wood. Get the right glove for the job and inspect your gloves before each use. Gloves that are falling apart or that have tears or rips don't give good protection. 3 is machine guarding. Machine guards prevent accidental exposure to moving parts. Don't take them off or bypass them. Machine guards on portable tools like lawnmowers and handheld saws prevent chopping off your fingers. Floor-mounted machines have safety guards in place for the same reason. Shut down the machine and make sure it is properly locked out before performing any maintenance. Don't wear metal jewelry like rings, wedding bands, or necklaces when working with machinery. 4. Normal daily use. Watch out for common hazards during normal everyday use. For example, don't pick up broken glass or sharp objects with your bare hands. Protect your hands when working with chemicals. Don't use your hands to sweep up wood chips, glass, metal pieces, shavings, or other related materials. Remember, use your brain before using your hands. Thanks for watching and have a safe day.
Ever heard of hazardous energy? Imagine something like this, or maybe something more like that. Not quite. Hazardous energy is any form of energy found around the workplace that poses a potential hazard. It comes in many forms. Electricity is a common one, but hydraulic pressure, radiation, and even gravity can sometimes be considered hazardous energy. Modern machinery can utilize many types of energy, but when the machines are shut down for maintenance, that energy may not just go away. Workers can be injured when energy is released unexpectedly. So to keep them safe, extra precaution must be taken when working with this equipment. That precaution is called lockout, tagout. There are many variations on LOTO processes and programs, depending on the type of hazardous energy present, but they all share 4 basic ideas that are addressed before work begins. 1. Identify potentially hazardous sources of energy. 2. Disconnect those energy sources from the equipment. 3. Apply lockout or tagout devices to temporarily prevent reconnection. 4. Confirm that the system is safe. Lockout-tagout systems must adhere to OSHA's lockout-tagout rules as described in 29 CFR section 1910.147. As important as they may seem, lockout-tagout plans get overlooked far too often, as lockout-tagout is commonly found in OSHA's annual Top 10 list. In 2015, it was number 5. For more information about LOTO programs and the equipment used, visit graphicproducts.com or follow the link, fill out the form, and get your free copy of our Lockout Tagout Best Practice Guide.
Bloodborne pathogens prevention and control measures. There is no way to determine if someone has an infectious bloodborne disease. Workers must assume that all blood and OPIM is infectious. This is known as universal precautions. Universal precautions are followed in medical facilities, and must be used anywhere occupational bloodborne pathogen hazards exist. If you encounter blood, or other potentially infectious material, assume it is hazardous, and use appropriate protective methods. Hepatitis B is a commonly transmitted bloodborne pathogen. Fortunately, there is a vaccine available that can minimize the risk of contracting this disease. Employers with occupational bloodborne pathogen exposure must make this available to employees, at no cost. It is not required, but it is one of the safest and most effective prevention methods available. Engineering controls are devices, or equipment, that isolate, or eliminate, the bloodborne pathogens hazard from the workplace. There are many common types of engineering controls. Sharps disposal containers provide a safe method for disposing of contaminated sharps. These objects, such as needles, razors, or broken glass, must be disposed of in one of these designated containers. Self-sheathing needles allow workers to cap needles, without exposing themselves to the risk of a needle stick. Engineering controls are the preferred method for dealing with bloodborne pathogen hazards. The employer is required to regularly evaluate the availability of engineering controls, and implement new controls as they become available. Work practice controls reduce the likelihood of exposure, by altering the way a task is performed. The most common work practice control is frequent hand washing. Regular cleaning, and decontamination of the work area, is another work practice control. The employer can also prohibit unsafe practices, such as eating or drinking in a contaminated area, smoking, or touching potentially contaminated sharps. Personal protective equipment provides a barrier between the employee and potential infection. PPE is a common method of protection. However, the employer has the responsibility to try and eliminate the hazard with engineering controls. If the hazard cannot be eliminated, then PPE can be required. Common PPE include gloves, face shields, masks, safety goggles, and protective clothing. The employer will provide work area-specific training on the selection and use of personal protective equipment. The workplace must be maintained in a clean and sanitary condition. The employer shall implement an appropriate written schedule for cleaning and decontamination, based upon the location within the facility, type of surface to be cleaned, type of soil present, and tasks or procedures being performed in the area. Contaminated work surfaces shall be decontaminated with an appropriate disinfectant, after completion of procedures, immediately or as soon as feasible when surfaces are overtly contaminated, or after any spill of blood or other potentially infectious materials, and at the end of the work shift. Disinfectants must be EPA approved. OSHA allows for a disinfecting solution of 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. Warning labels must be placed on containers of regulated waste, refrigerators and freezers containing blood or other potentially infectious material, and other containers used to store, transport or ship blood or other potentially infectious materials. These labels must be fluorescent orange, or orange and red, and include the biohazard text and graphic. Red bags, or red containers, may be substituted for labels.